Hey guys, Justin here with Rampengu Nation, and we're back here with James. I know it's been like a while since we had him back on the channel with the BA combo videos. We actually recorded this one time before, but the video got a bit messed up, so we're just rerunning it right now, and everything is like gonna be fine. But we're gonna go through the Burning Abyss combos that we said that we would do after his deck profile. And yeah, I know how it sounds like okay, you can make like Beatrice or Dante pass, but there's actually a lot to it. So, James, why don't you give us like a brief synopsis of the combos you're about to show us?
Okay, cool. So we are going to start with where you end with IP and Beatrice, and for this combo, you got to start with Graph, and then it's just any other BA other than obviously another copy of Graph or a Seer.
Okay.
Okay, so and then the Drolls are just to show the other cards in our hand. They can be hand traps or whatever. First we will reveal the other BA. In this case, it's Libic. Then you will normal summon the Graph, overlay into Dante, and since this was since we didn't start with hang on here, my dueling book is being a little weird.
No, you're good.
Yeah, okay, cool. And then summon Dante. And since we didn't start with Scarm here, we'll go ahead and, mill 3, detaching the Graph.
Yeah, it's very
if we
unlikely you hit all three of your series. Yeah.
Right. And if we hit a Scarm or a Rhino, we get the Scarm search. And we did not. We did hit a Seer though, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we're not going to use it because we're going to do Graph to summon a Seer from deck. And then you will use the Dante and Seer to link. And once again, this is saying we only start with these 2 cards. The other 3 cards are just going to be hand traps or whatever in this scenario.
Specifically not Burning Abyss cards as well. Yeah.
Right. Yep. I mean, we could have started with Desires. I mean, we might have 4 other cards, but we're just, these are just for instructional purposes only. And then on the IP summon, Seer and Dante will trigger. Dante will Seer will summon Dante, and Dante will add back basically anyone. I mean, doesn't really matter what you do here, but
you want to make sure like Dante is like chain like 2, right, to avoid like Ghost Spell.
Yeah. Yes. Correct. I was just saying, like, on what you add back doesn't matter too much. I mean, I guess they could nib you here, and you would just be stuck with whatever you add back. So I mean, just keep that in mind. And then from this point, you just ditch the Graph, and then you summon the Beatrice.
Okay.
And that was basically just, 2 cards. And if we hit a Rhino or a Scarm, we'd also be searching Tour Guy, but if not, that's fine too.
Gotcha. So one of my viewers had a question on your deck profile video. It was why didn't you play Gravity Controller? Because they said that basically Seer and any Burning Abyss sponsor then became Beatrice.
Yeah, I just didn't think that came up enough to warrant that, because it's more of a room issue than anything, but it's also like I didn't feel like Seer and that came up as much as like these other things that we do. But I mean, it's definitely something you could consider playing for sure.
Gotcha. And you wanted the 15th spot for the blocker, which made sense too.
Yes. Yep. And blocker was the 15th spot, which we will go over later.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go over the second video. Alright guys, we're back here with James for the second combo. And what is this board gonna look like with this combo?
So we are going to end on this board. We're going to end with Apollousa and Beatrice. And basically what you need to end on this board is Tour Guide plus Seer/Scarm. And then another BA monster, or Tour Guide plus Seer and Scarm. And then if you open those, then you won't get the Scarm search, but the board will be the same.
Gotcha.
So, this hand, like obviously we're cherry picking these hands, but this hand will just do like the Seer and the Farfa because, why not? So we will, of course, start with our trusty tour guide to summon Graph. And then we will link these two away. For Cherubuni. And on summon, Graph will trigger to summon BA from our deck. And we will summon the Scarm. And then Boony effect for cost. You can target whatever because we're going first. And then we'll send the Libic for cost. Libic effect will summon the Seer in our hand. And then you will use the Scarm and the Seer at this point to overlay for a Dante. And at this point, it's pretty important to realize that milling here actually just does nothing. There's just no point to mill at all. So then you will go ahead and reveal the Farfa in our hand.
And you brought up that you always want to make the Dante before revealing the other BA because of possible nib.
Right, because nib. So like if I were to leave the the other BAs on field and then some special the Farfa and then we get nibbed, we're literally just losing the Dante add back from grave. So like that just can't be correct.
Gotcha.
Then yeah, we special the Farfa here, and then go into the Apollo for 3. Put the 3 counters on there just to recognize what that is. Then you'll do Chainlink 1 Seer on the Dante, Chainlink 2 Dante on. Once again, it doesn't really matter. We'll just say the Graph though, and then special the Dante, and then from this point, of course, we ditch the card we added back for the Beatrice, and then during the end phase, we will of course get the Scarm, so we have a very strong follow-up along with the Beatrice and the Apollo and the other 2 likely hand traps or Solemn Strike, whatever else.
And this is like a super strong board against like Drytron and Virtual World, seems like.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha. Alright, let's get into the third combo. And this one is going to be with Blocker and Crescendo, right? So this one should be interesting. This is the third combo, and James said this is why you actually play Blocker, and it's basically because if you open Crescendo. Do you want to give more detail into that?
Yeah, I mean, Blocker is pretty much always. I mean, Blocker was added in because the Crescendo, and like you may make it a few times. I've actually seen like a lot of Burning Abyss lists like with Blocker in their extra deck because I tapped LCS with it, but they're not playing the Crescendo. So maybe I'm missing a combo. Maybe I need to learn something on that. But the Blocker was literally only for the Crescendo if you drew it, and like I did make it one other time during the LCS, but that was like a very like rare occurrence in my opinion. So but yeah, we can go and get into what happens if you, and once again, this doesn't have to just be tour guide, but this is just the the more basic thing that happens if you just have the tour guide and the Crescendo.
Okay.
So we will add these 2 to hand and go ahead and start. Do tour guide effect, summon Graph again. Tour guide loves summoning Graph, they're best friends. And then you will go ahead and link these 2 for Cherubini. And then the Graph will special. Go ahead and special the Scarm. And then you will use the Beanie effect for cost. To send Seer. Seer effect will then summon back graph, and then you will use the graph and the scarm for the blocker, and then this is why I played the blocker. It just lets you ditch this crescendo, and it's actually it's like a big deal to ditch this, because this just turns the crescendo into like better than just a negate against Drytron. You know, it's like Cycle Reader is such a high impact against a lot of Drytron hands that it's just better than like, you know, because we're giving up one Apollo negate for a Cycle Reader, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And then we'll go ahead and link these two monsters into the Apollo. Get our two counters for, you know, the two negates, and then of course we will go to in phase. And then on their turn we can banish the crescendo, and then we will add the Cycle Reader to hand. And then these three other cards, since this is all we opened, it's pretty apparent that we have other interruptions as well, on top of the Apollo, on top of the Cycle Reader.
Gotcha.
So this is why I like the deck for the event.
So like one more burning of this, you could also probably end with Beatrice with this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you just use the Dante to make the block, and does to make the Apollo, and then you'd have the Dante, and you can make the Beatrice with the extra Dante out there. Okay, so that makes sense why you would like prefer to go for Apollo over Beatrice, because this is specifically against Drytron, because that's when you're gonna have Crescendo.
Correct, because we have Crescendo in the deck, so
Correct.
we're definitely playing against Drytron.
Yeah,
so yeah,
that makes sense. All right, okay, awesome. And the last combo is actually kind of nice. It's one of the weaknesses that I was encountering with the deck at first, and James is here to help us with it. It's how to play through Nibiru with the deck. And we're back here with James with the last combo. This is actually one of the coolest ones, where he said that he can kill through Nibiru and never play into it. So James, if you want to explain more about this combo.
Yeah, so I mean there's a bunch of different, you know, scenarios where you can just end with the Beatrice, but we're just gonna say the most basic, where you just end with like Tour Guide and Scarm in hand. And we're not gonna play into the Beatrice turn one, and then as long as we're able to halt them with our hand traps, and this came up a lot against Drytron, sometimes against Virtual World, sometimes against Rogue, but it comes up a lot. It came up multiple times during the LCS, and it comes up a lot during testing too. So we will go ahead and start with the Tour Guide. Let's summon the Graph from deck. And then you overlay these two for our third summon of Dante. And since we do have the Scarm in hand, like there's no point to mill to hit like a Scarm or a Rhino or anything, and that just kind of depends on like what you open. But yeah, there's absolutely no point to mill here. So then we just throw the Scarm in grave, we summon the Beatrice, then we go to end phase and we search the Tour Guide. It's definitely important to search the Tour Guide here over anything else. Let's go ahead and put that down there.
So let's say you pass to me, and then like I basically don't really have much, but let's just say I have a singular monster in the field. So for demonstrations, we'll just say like I have a Skullmeister, right? But in most cases against like Drytron, this argument's like say you get drilled and all I pass on is like a Link Revo. Let's see what happens. The Nibs in
it
here
could be a Link Revo or like a random Virtual World monster. Just when you stop them with the hand traps or strikes, or honestly even like Mind Drain post side against Virtual World. Like there's a bunch of cards where you literally just stop them and you have your Beatrice during end phase, which is what we're going to go over. So I'm going to go ahead and add the Tour Guide to hand. So then during your opponent's end phase, we'll detach the Dante here. Send the Seer. Go Chainlink 1 Dante to summon the, or Chainlink 1 Seer to summon the Dante. Chainlink 2 Dante to add the Seer. And then we will draw for turn. And keep in mind, it doesn't matter what we draw for turn here whatsoever. but you know, whatever I draw, I'm just gonna put in the spell and trap zone. So we drew a Skullmaster, cool. So we go ahead and go to main phase, and keep in mind we played around Nib turn 1, but this is also going to play around through the Nib turn 2, kill them through it, kill them if they activate it, and then also through the monster that they have on field. So we will go ahead and go main phase, normal the Tour Guide. Tour Guide will summon Graph from deck. And then use the Tour Guide and the Graph for Cherubini, which puts us at 3 summons, and then on summon Beanie effect, we'll summon from deck.
With the graph, yeah.
And you... The Graph, sorry, yes. And you will summon the Seer here. Sorry, my dueling book's glitching a little bit. Can't see the last 3 cards in my deck for some reason.
Okay.
And it's important that you summon the Seer to a zone that Beanie points to, because Beatrice is not a BA monster, so it would self-destruct if it wasn't if Beanie's not pointing to it. Beanie will protect it from being destroyed. So at this point we're at 4 summons. So our only choice here, of course, is to go into the card that will once again shut off their Nib from being able to activate, which is Alusa. And we will get our 3 counters on summon just to show that it has the 3 negates. And then we have the Seer and the Dante both to trigger. We already have a Seer in our hands because we added it before. So we will go Chain Link 1 Seer on the Beanie, in fact, summon, and Chain Link 2 Dante to add back, you know, one of the other BAs. We'll just go ahead and do the graph here. Okay, and then at this point we will, since we didn't use Beanie the first time, since we know we were playing around the Nib, we'll go ahead and do it now. And we'll send the Libic. And Libic will summon Seer from our hand. And Seer is negated because Libic's effect actually negates it. So it doesn't really matter where you summon the Seer at. And then at this point, since Beanie sent Libic, Beanie goes to we're targeting the Beanie with its effect, so it goes to 18, and then you have 16 on Seer, and then you have 24 on Apollo, and then you have the 25 with Beatrice, which is game through an empty board. However, if they have a monster, that's fine too, because when you enter battle phase, we'll go ahead and use the Beatrice to detach. You can go ahead and send just the Scarm for the end phase, and then the Graph will go ahead and trigger, sending the Farfa, and then you just Farfa whatever monster. But
what if we
let's
nib
say
you in
that-
main phase? Because if we try to, the Apollo goes down to 16,
Right.
which makes it at only 75, right?
Right. Which, you know, that would be very unfortunate because we can't kill them anymore because we only have 75. We would still have the Beatrice Farfa on their monster, but the damage is only 75.
Right. So let's
However,
say this got negated and I still got the monster.
Yes. Let's go ahead and say that. So the Nib's negated, you still have the monster. Then we just use all 3 of these, and we still play this card, of course. Boral Sword. Then at this point, we still just enter the battle, and
You would Farfa the monster even if it's in defense.
Farfa whatever monster. Especially, I mean, you don't always have to Farfa the monster depending on what it is, but yeah, usually you just still Farfa the monster, sending the Scarm, and then you just kill them through the Nib anyways if they did have it.
That's pretty cool. Like, I didn't really think about making the Boral Sword with the Appaloosa and the Cherubini and the Seer. Like, if they try to nib you to make it still game. So yeah, that's pretty informative actually. Pretty sure a lot of people wouldn't have seen that line.
Yeah, it's really cool, and like through all of this, we still have insane advantage because we still have Beatrice, we still have a Scarm Search, and we still have, I mean, we have our draw for turn, and however many cards we didn't use the first turn. Like this deck, like is very good at like retaining advantage for sure.
Gotcha. Well, all right, James. This was actually very helpful, and I think this will be very good for people who are like trying to continue playing Burning Abyss in the current format. Any closing words you'd like to give about the combos in deck?
So not really over the combos, but a lot of people ask me why I didn't play Foolish Burial in the deck, and that reason's like pretty simple to me because I would rather have like Foolish Burial is just like a fourth graph essentially, except it's worse than a graph, right? Because you would rather like if you have a random BA in your hand and Foolish Burial, that's just strictly worse than a random BA and graph because the stuff you can do, the normal summon of graph, you know, to get to your Apollo Beatrice, or your just, you know, your IP Beatrice combos, you can't really do that with the graph because the Foolish, because the Foolish burns the graph, you know, while getting there, whereas just like a random BA and graph is just better in my opinion. And then plus the fact that it can get Ash, which wasn't a huge part, but I still think that like Foolish is not quite good enough to be played in this deck how it is now.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much for your combo videos, and sure to have you on the channel more with more ideas that you have. I don't think you're just gonna limit yourself to Burning Abyss, but who knows? You might find out more cool things to do with the deck. All right.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to be back on the channel.
All right. This is just another from Penguin Nation, and see you guys.